I had so much fun making the paper dresses, I decided I need to learn how to make men's shirts. To make our men's shirts, we start with a paper that is 8" by 4". And the first thing we do is we fold it in half. And then we bring this over to that seam, that fold line. Okay, now bring this corner right to the center fold. We need to fold this right there. Once you've got this much, you need to fold this down like this. So it looks like that, and that's just so that we have that crease. Now this is the slightly tricky part. Now what we want to do is we want to bring this seam to sit right here. So you basically pull it forward. Okay, so you have this, and you folded that, and then you fold this. Okay, now we need to have this closed, and we have to pull this up so that the bottom of this triangle will sit right there. So so that will add another fold right here. So it basically opens up, kind of forming a little box like this. This is forming the sleeve. Now everybody doesn't do this, but this makes a much better sleeve, right? Then you stick your thumbs in here, and we're going to bring this edge down to meet this line right here. And that forms our sleeve. That's the sleeve. Okay, so we have our sleeve. Now, for the opposite end, we are going to work on our color. So we need to fold this over like this. Okay, so we folded that. Now flip it over and we bring it around like this so that this corner will touch the center fold, and that will be at an angle. Do that to both sides so that the two corners meet. Back out. So now everything looks like it's all on this side. Now we take our sleeve and tuck it right under the collar, just like that. And then we fold this lower end. You can either draw on the pockets or you can cut them out and glue them on like I did with so many of these other shirts. This collar holds this top part. See? This opens up just like that. It just tucks right underneath the collar. And then you can just use your leftover paper to cut pockets. And when I did the buttons, let me just get a pen here. I used a ruler. I guess I could use that color. I used a ruler and I set it right here, and every ½ inch, putting a button every ½ inch. And then I wanted to draw a line to show the opening of the shirt using a fine point marker. And sometimes I think it's a good idea to have a line on the second side because usually there's a row of stitching, top stitching there. You can either draw on the pockets or you can cut them out and glue them on like I did with so many of these other shirts. The pockets are just glued on. Or maybe that's not the best one to look at. This one you can see it real good. I think you can. Problem with this pattern is I got diagonals. The sleeves looks right, but the front is diagonal. That's the only weird thing about that pattern. But the vertical stripes, if you have anything with vertical stripes, you want those stripes to run this way. And that's how you make a shirt. when I consider my shirt, I will pick a background, and I try to pick a background where I have contrast, 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 light, dark. This one, I wanted some black because there's black stripes, but I also wanted white because I didn't want it to be too dark because it's fairly dark. There's a slight bit of purple in here, so I use this marbly purple in the background. So I think about contrast when I choose my background. And then whether or not it needs some decorations, such as some extra stamps. Okay, so I want to show you what I did with all of those men's shirts. Now this one was a suit jacket. I was playing around, messing around. I did not show how to make this because why is it every time I start recording you have to join? Anyways, so this was just one of those pieces that I wasn't totally happy with. But I made it into something because, you know, I don't want to waste. And so I made this, and it's probably going to wind up being for my pastor. For a swell guy, you've got it all together. Happy birthday. And I'll put a little verse here. I accidentally cut this piece of paper too short, so I had this white space. I was like, ah! But then I found that I had this paper, and I said, well, that'll be okay. So sometimes, you know, little happy accidents. I think this shirt was the first shirt that I tried, and it didn't turn out right, and it was the wrong size. And I think the tie didn't actually go right either. So, like, a lot of things didn't go right. The shirt was wrong, the tie was wrong, but I made it into something anyway. So that's that. And here's a wild colored shirt. It reminds me of a guy on vacation. So I had these already prepared and cut out. A camera, a suitcase, and binoculars. I put some metallic silver on those parts. And I cut this off of a map. So I hope the person that this card is for doesn't see this before he receives it, because it's going to be a while. But this card, I created it with the idea of adventure, because he and his wife used to go on adventures, and they like to talk about having adventures. Well, now they have 5 children, so the adventure, each day is an adventure. Family is everything. And I wrote this: your greatest adventure is your beautiful family. Children only grow up once, so make the most of it. Happy birthday. And that's just very personalized for him. I know it's not really a birthday message, but I'm making it a birthday message. And I just wanted to, you know, let him know. And this shirt looks like a men's shirt. This is one of the first cards I did. I lined it with green in the background, and then I put this wood grain backdrop, and it needed a little bit more color, so I framed this. I actually printed up some labels on my computer, and then I just cut them out, and then this one I framed it just to add a little bit more color, because it was kind of a boring card. Those are stamped messages inside. And here's the blue shirt. Now with this one, I did start with a piece of wood grain. No, actually it was more of a fabric texture, canvas texture. And then I used my clock stamps that, because I love clocks and the idea of time passing. And for this one, I actually wrote a little poem. It reads like this: time passes by. Soon you find you've added another year. Don't count the minutes, hours, or days that fly. Count the moments spent with those you hold dear. Happy birthday. Yeah, sometimes I write poetry. Sometimes, you know what's most frustrating thing about card making is the message inside. I cannot find stamps with good messages. I try to piece it together with multiple stamps like this, but it just doesn't always work out. I think I need to start developing my own. What I did is I took my cardstock and I put it in the computer, and I had it print there, and I got it formatted so that it's not perfect, it's not centered, there's more space here than there is there, and I got to tweak it some, but I'll keep working on that. But sometimes I just have to write my own message because I cannot find a stamp that will do. Okay, now this one, I thought the paper pattern was great for a guy, a plaid, and I thought black and white and red is very striking. I printed this on my computer. The inside message was printed, but I did stamp the happy birthday. And for this one, I liked that pattern. It kind of reminds me of a men's jacket. But by itself, it was plain, so I put it on a piece of black paper, and then when I put the label on, I let it stop right at the edge, so it just made a nice little frame. And since the size of that always leaves this much space at the bottom, I think that filled it in pretty good. And this is kind of the same principle, very simple message. I did add a stamp here and there, but that one was printed off my computer. And here was one of the first shirts I did, and the tie is a little bit too much. It was the only striped paper I had, and it's wild colors, and that was my first attempt, but I don't like to throw things away, so we made it into a card anyways. These two are very similar. I felt like that background would be good contrast, and this, you know, is a casual shirt, denim fabric. I felt like they went together, but I felt like it was really plain. So what I did is I used one of my favorite dies, which is these dies here, and I taped two together and cut out a small section. There's the cutout right there. I saved it because I might use it somewhere. And that just added a little bit more interest to the card. And then I used a smaller cut, probably this one, to cut. I stamped it and on some scraps, and then I cut that part out. So I'm finding multiple uses with this. I just ordered the ovals that are, I forget what you call it when you have all these multiple sizes and they all fit inside each other. I just ordered the ovals because I find that I actually do need ovals, because the ovals I have are too small and I want some bigger ovals, and I want to do fun things with ovals. So this is an awesome set by Waffle Flower. I really love it, and that helped me to dress this up because they were kind of plain looking. Now this one, I was so pleased with how this card looks. I started with this as a background against that, but that would have been so plain. So again, I used my clock stamps that I purchased off of Amazon, vintage keys and DIY clocks. So that's a couple of sets that I kind of cut it down so that I could fit it all in here. But these are some old-fashioned images because I'm kind of an old-fashioned girl. I like traditional things. I like old-fashioned keys. As a matter of fact, I have a set. And I like clocks. Yeah, I like clocks. Let me show you something. I collect clocks and broken watches, and I'm saving them in this jar. I'm trying to save time. I just think these old stopwatches are so cool, even if they're broken. I have a few of them. They're just so neat, and I just love collecting them. So if I see them at a secondhand shop, I will pick them up because they're just so cool. So yeah, broken watches and old clocks and stopwatches, I collect them and put them in my jar. And I have clocks all over my house. So to me, the clocks represent something. They represent time. They represent antiques. They represent aging. So I felt like that was a good theme to use on a guy's, you know, I don't want to make something frilly and pretty. I want to make something that's handsome and attractive that a guy would appreciate. So I felt like oh yeah, I also have, let me show you that. I have this stamp, which is just some messy handwriting. I picked this one up, I believe, at Hobby Lobby. I think that's where I got it. Or maybe I ordered off Amazon. It's from Recollections. Because I like to do journaling, so this is awesome. I like to have print. So I stamped that on there. You can see the words. And then I just randomized the placement of the clocks, even if they're partially off the page. And that really dressed up that plain piece of just wood cut paper. So I thought the wood grain, you know, works for a guy, the clocks. It added a flavor to the card that I think really, really works. Now, I did something else. This burgundy paper, I happen to use burgundy a lot. I go through it a lot, and I plan on using it for my Christmas cards, and I really didn't want to use up the card. So what I did, I cut the center out. Again, using my favorite dies that I get so much use out of. I cut out the center, and then I have extra of this, and I already made a bunch of Christmas cards with this, and I don't really have much use for it. So I wanted to use it up, and I don't care about it, so I cut a replacement, and I put this in the hole so that it's all one level. I just didn't want to waste this paper because I love this color. I use it a lot, and I just want to hang on to it. So that's what you do. You just stick a paper in there you don't like. And that way it's all one level. And with this, I used a black band that goes from the very edge to the very edge. The black kind of pulls out the black that's back there. Well, yeah, on this shirt, I know this pocket's smaller than this pocket. Look, I tried to pencil it on and get it right, but I messed it up. I used a fine point pen to put the buttons on and draw the lines and to draw the pockets. With the other shirts, I actually made the pockets. If I had a pair of like a die cut of like sunglasses, I could stick a sunglass in there, or maybe I could make a teeny tiny pin and stick it in there. But you could add things. You know, this one is the only one that got accessorized with the string wrapped around and the binoculars. So I did accessorize that one. So anyways, I made 2 cards, very similar. With this one, I didn't use a frame around it. I didn't think it needed it. So I just left that as is. Oh yes, here's another way I saved on paper. When I put this paper on here, I just felt like I didn't like the white because the background's kind of light. I wanted more contrast. So I used a marker and I colored the very edge of the paper, and then I stuck the paper on. I wish that I'd used my finger daubers because that color turned out really dark. If I'd used my finger daubers, I could have just rubbed on some color and it wouldn't be quite so dark. But it's okay. It worked out fine. I did use my thumb daubers to go around the edge of the paper with a little bit of blue to just kind of vignette the paper. So that was another thing that I did. I used more of a browns. I think it was a crumb cake, or maybe it was soft suede or Sahara sand. I used a light brown color to just ink it up just a little bit using my finger daubers. So here are all the cards I have. Now I have masculine cards to send out to all of my guys. Some of them are my sons, my son-in-law, other men that I give cards to that are close to the family, and my pastor. And these shirts are origami folds, and I show you that in the video a couple of times. So try it. It's pretty cool. The size of the paper, let me see, I checked my notes. I have a note here somewhere. Origami men's shirts start with a 8-inch by 4-inch piece of paper. The ties, I'm still trying to figure out how to make the ties. This one is wonky. It's too fat. I don't like it. This one was sort of a mock tie. But I'm going to play and learn how to perfect the tie, because I can't stand it when I can't do something. Here's an example of how much I love to play with paper. So I made this like little corner of a living room with books, candle, a doily, table, the chair, the cat, the topiary, the painting. I even did the painting, and I made the frame, and I colored that picture and put it in a frame. The window, I mean, I had so much fun making that, and I spent hours doing it. And then I felt like it needed an outside, and you can actually see through the window. See that? The light passes right through the window. And I made a little garden. I made all these little grasses, the stones, and the bird bath. Look at that. Look at that. Isn't that cool? And the flowers, the flower bin with butterflies and flowers growing along the house, and the ivy that's growing all over the lattice and up the wall, the paper siding, and the little entrance to the garden. I spent hours making this. Isn't that cool? I have a video on how I did just the garden, the paper garden, and the paper Victorian room. I tried to style the room after Victorian decor because that's what I love, Victorian decor. But see, just an example of how I love to play with paper. Check out those two videos. I'll link them in the video description below so you can see how this was made. You know how one thing leads to another? So I had so much fun with the paper room. I said, oh, let's make a dollhouse. So I started with a cardboard box, and this is the progress of it so far. We have the girls' room with matching bunk beds, a dresser, the bedding. The wallpaper came from a wallpaper book. We have the master bedroom with an antique dresser and antique bed. I had fun making curtains for each of the rooms. I really like the curtains in the living room. And this is going to be the sofa. I just got fabric tossed in here that I'm going to use for the furniture for the living room. I haven't got to that yet. And I haven't finished the kitchen, but you can see the curtains, a valance for the kitchen. And there's going to be a nursery or playroom up in the attic, and these are the colors, since we have a lot of green in the room, very soft but muted green. And so there's a box that I might turn into a bed, an Apple phone box. Those are just some leftover wood scraps when I did another project. Oh yeah, when I made my overhead stand for holding my camera. And I am planning next on making this right here. That's my plan next, which is going to go right over there in the corner in that tiny little space, and it has to be about that size because this house doesn't have a bathroom, so we have to have a sink. They have to use an outhouse because it's an old-fashioned house. So you might say that I'm a little addicted to crafting. It's just so much fun. I love miniatures. Some free wallpaper sample books and use them for card making. Next thing I know, I'm wallpapering a dollhouse and making a dollhouse. One thing leads to another with craft. Here's my collection of wallpaper books. I know somebody who is a manager in a paint store, and I told him I was interested in their outdated wallpaper books. So I use these books for crafting. Good for card making, decorating boxes, gift boxes. You can make doll houses. There's so many possibilities with free supplies, free printed papers. Of course, depends on the project you're doing. You want smaller prints if it's for a dollhouse, but you can use the larger prints for other purposes. So I've got lots of these free wallpapers. hope you found some inspiration and some ideas in this video. If you found value in this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and if you'd like more of this content, please subscribe. Thanks for watching.